today, we're not just looking at another budget. No. We're going to reverse engineer a really powerful financial system, one that's designed to build wealth by actually working with your brain's weird wiring, not against it. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with this number, 3.8%. That's the average savings rate for American households. And just to be clear, that's not 3.8% of what they should be saving, it's 3.8% of what they actually earn. Right away, that tells you something pretty important. The default system is broken. Now, this is the goal, 20%. And the gap between that 3.8% reality and this 20% target, well, that's everything. That's the space where fortunes are either built or they're just lost. It might seem like a small chunk of a paycheck, but over time, trust me, it becomes a massive deal. And this is what that gap actually looks like in dollars and cents. Over the course of 30 years, that difference in savings rate creates a wealth differential of $1.2 million for someone earning a median income. And that's not from some lucky stock tip. It's from having a smart, consistent system. So, let's crack this thing open. Okay, so the first thing you have to understand is that the 50-30-20 rule isn't really a budget in the way we usually think about it. It's more of a behavioral blueprint. It wasn't designed by some investment guru. It was actually designed by a Harvard bankruptcy expert who spent her career studying why people fail financially. So at its core, it's a system built to prevent collapse.
Yeah, and that origin story is everything. See, Elizabeth Warren developed this not by studying how people get rich, but by digging into the wreckage of why they go bankrupt. So you have to think of this system as a diagnostic tool, one that's engineered from the ground up to create financial stability.
And here it is, the architecture in all its simple glory. You take your after-tax income, the actual money that lands in your bank account, and you split it into 3 buckets. 50% for needs, the absolute must-haves. 30% for wants, the stuff that makes life fun. And here's the key, a non-negotiable 20% for savings and paying down debt. This simple structure builds a firewall between your income and your worst impulses.
All right, so on the surface, it looks pretty simple. But you're probably asking, why does this one work when pretty much every other budget you've tried has failed? Well, to understand that, we've got to pop the hood and look at the neurological gears that are constantly trying to sabotage our best financial plans.
The main culprit is this sneaky little cognitive bias called hyperbolic discounting. It's basically a glitch in our brain's programming, that fast, emotional System 1 brain. It's the part of you that makes a reward right now feel way, way more valuable than a much bigger reward that's far off in the future. Your brain isn't just calculating money, it's calculating time.
And this is the perfect example. Now, mathematically, these two options are basically the same, assuming a normal market return. But who are we kidding? Almost every single one of us is taking the $500 today. Why? Because that immediate reward feels real, and our brain System 1 just screams, take the money now. It overrules our logical brain almost every time. And look, the science is clear. Trying to win this battle with sheer willpower, you're gonna lose. That's what's so brilliant about the 50-30-20 rule. It doesn't ask you to fight that battle. By automating your 20% savings transfer, the decision is made before your emotional brain even wakes up. It never even sees the money, which completely sidesteps the whole bias.
Okay, so the next mental trap we all fall into is called loss aversion. We're fundamentally wired to feel the sting of a loss about twice as intensely as we feel the joy from an equal gain. So when you have to manually move money from your checking to your savings, your brain literally processes that as a painful loss, and we're programmed to avoid pain.
And the last big one? Expenditure cascades. You know it as keeping up with the Joneses. As you see your friends and coworkers get nicer cars, go on bigger vacations, your internal definition of normal starts to creep up. And your wants bucket starts to bleed into your other buckets, not because of one big decision, but through 1,000 tiny little ones. The rule's hard boundaries are there specifically to stop that from happening.
But let's get real for a second. This rule was designed back in 2005. The economic world has changed a lot. So we have to ask the question, does this blueprint still hold up against the financial realities that we're all facing today? So check this number out, 22.3%. This is probably the single biggest wealth killer for most people today. It's the average interest rate on credit card debt. It is a guaranteed high-interest loss that is actively fighting against any progress you try to make. And this chart just lays it all out, plain as day.
Carrying a credit card balance is like trying to climb a ladder, but for every step you take up, you're sliding 2 steps back down. You are guaranteeing a loss that is more than double the historical average gain of the stock market. You have to seal this leak first. It's priority number one.
So what's the other big challenge? Housing. For almost half of all renters today, the cost of housing alone eats up more than 30% of their income. That means their 50% needs bucket is already being squeezed before they've even bought a single carton of milk. It makes sticking to the original ratios incredibly tough. And here is the most important takeaway from this whole section. The answer isn't to just throw the whole system out. It's to adapt it. The ratios can be adjusted. Maybe it becomes 60-20-20 for you. The 50 and the 30, they can bend. But that 20% savings floor, that is your firewall. It is sacred. You protect it at all costs.
All right, so we've seen how it's built. We've gone through the modern day challenges. Now for the fun part. Let's actually run the simulation and see what this system can do over the long haul. And wow, the results are just stark. On the left, you've got the default system, right? Saving at that national average of 3.8%. After 30 years, you end up with around $287,000. On the right, you have the engineered blueprint. Saving 20% consistently gets you over $1.5 million. That $1.2 million difference comes from just one sustained change in your behavior.
But here's the kicker. The most powerful variable in this whole thing isn't how well your investments do. It's when you start. Because of the magic of compounding, every 5-year delay in getting started effectively cuts your final wealth in half. Time isn't just money. It's a multiplier. It's your most valuable asset. Okay, so let's pull all this together and just summarize what this system is really doing for you. Let's stop thinking of it as a budget and start seeing it for what it is, a piece of really smart behavioral architecture. It's basically doing 4 things for you automatically. First, it automates your savings so your emotional brain doesn't even get a vote. Second, it builds a wall to stop that lifestyle creep. Third, it forces you to focus on killing high-interest debt, which gives you a guaranteed return. And finally, it scales up as your income grows, so you avoid that feeling of loss. So at the end of the day, it really just comes down to a choice between 2 systems. You can stick with the default path, the one that leads to that 3.8% savings rate, debt, and a whole lot of uncertainty. Or you can make a deliberate choice to rebuild, to install that 3-bucket architecture built on that solid 20% floor. That's it. That one structural change is the lever. It's the mechanism that creates that $1.2 million difference we saw at the beginning. It doesn't require a new job or some genius market timing. The rebuild starts with the very next dollar that hits your account. So the only real question is, are you ready to pull the lever?